Hey dudes, welcome to another episode of I Miss the 90s. I'm your host, Mike O'Connor. Now, if you saw the title of this video and wondered, what the hell is Mike talking about? Things my stepdad liked in the 90s? What's that all about? Well, to put it simply, if you had a stepdad in the 90s, it was very possible they tried to relate to you on some level, successfully or unsuccessfully. Or maybe they just thought they were a lot cooler than they actually were. And at the end of the day, we are just having fun in this episode, and it's not to be taken too seriously. With that out of the way, let's jump right into a not so surprising show your stepdad probably liked in the 90s. Baywatch. Or as he likely referred to it as, "Hey Mike, I'm gonna need to take over the TV, it's time to watch a little bit of Baywatch." Baywatch is an action drama TV series about, wait for it, lifeguards who patrol the beaches of LA County and in the later years, Hawaii. Baywatch debuted on NBC in 1989 and was canceled after only one season, placing 73rd out of 103 shows in the seasonal ratings. The Hoffman, along with creators and executive producers, took a risk and revived it for the first-run syndication market in 1991. This proved to be a successful investment, especially in the international market, with an estimated 1 billion viewers in 142 countries. Okay. The large ensemble cast included previously mentioned David Hasselhoff, Alexandra Paul, Parker Stevenson, Yasmine Bleeth, and of course, Pamela Anderson. Most of the premise of the show revolved around your standard and expected plots of interpersonal relationships and saving drowning victims. But it also had some, well, very 90s plot lines. Like when a new drug called Spice hits LA and an amateur fire breather tweaked out of his mind decides he's gonna burn down the lifeguard tower. Or when Mitch, played by Hasselhoff, falls in love with a woman he rescues and it turns out she's a serial killer.
I will never let another man run my life. Not even you.
Or how about the time when Mitch's doofus of a son, Hobie, got trapped in a cave and he couldn't escape because of a gigantic electric eel. Don't worry though, he survived thanks to his dad's quick thinking by killing it with a defibrillator. I don't even know if I said that word right. So hard to say. Also, he got his tongue pierced in an episode. You remember those? I mean, as fun as those episodes were, that wasn't why your stepdad tuned in every week. He tuned in because of the slow motion running and the effect of gravity on...
Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Some things are better left unsaid.
Whew, that's a fine looking lady right there. Don't tell your mom I said that. Now, while your stepdad might have tuned in for that reason, and look, I'm not letting Baywatch off the hook for promoting the show like that. There was just so much more going on in its 45-minute runtime. And when I say more, I mean you'd have an episode where Stephanie finds out she has skin cancer, while at the very same time, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage are trying to save a youth rec center. What?
I have no idea what would have happened to us without this place, but it's not a pretty picture, Oster.
I wouldn't say the show was deep or even had something to say. It felt like it pulled from as many pop culture references as possible, ranging from soap operas and police dramas to the previously mentioned wrestling subplot to even Twin Peaks. It was absolutely surreal. If you've ever watched the show Friends, which I don't really recommend, there was a running gag where Chandler and Joey would religiously watch Baywatch together because Chandler had a mega crush on Yasmine Bleeth, and I mean, who doesn't? The show certainly had its fans, but are you ready to have your mind blown? 65% of the audience was actually female. Its #1 audience was women between the ages of 18 and 34. After doing focus groups for 5 years, creators were finally able to nail down the reason why. Most of its lead characters were strong, independent women who were heroic, saving lives, and who were equal to men. I mean, your stepdad wasn't watching the show as an excuse to see Pamela Anderson, right? Certainly a man who appreciates the finer things in life, like Jeff Gordon winning the Winston Cup in 1995, was on the edge of his seat during the 2-part episode that revolved around a giant octopus stealing surfboards. Right? Eventually, his interest in the show would fade, though, with the introduction of the spin-off show, Baywatch Nights. Both Mitch and Sergeant Garner, who's going through a midlife crisis, decide to start a detective agency, renting out a small office inside of a nightclub, and it's not good. While the original Baywatch showed lifeguards go above and beyond their job descriptions, and surprisingly without any consequence, Baywatch Nights leaned into more absurd territory. Season 1 almost felt like a parody of the original show, with episode plots like investigating a cosmetic mogul's son's involvement with a gang of roller skating burglars, or when Mitch falls in love with a cat burglar. So many burglars. Even with some sexier scenes added to Baywatch Nights, their ratings tanked. So for season 2, they did what any other show in 1996 would do: rip off the X-Files. That's right, instead of doubling down on catching thieves and protecting rich supermodels from stalkers, Mitch and the gang would soon find themselves face to face with Vikings, who resumed their feud after being on ice for 900 years.
We have a heartbeat!
You know the word berserk?
Yeah.
It comes from the Vikings. Never to retreat.
No Viking can enter Valhalla without a sword. Valhalla! Valhalla!
Or investigating murders committed by a half-human, half-fish woman that really wants to have a baby. No, I didn't make that up.
Ryan, I don't think a frog did all this.
It's not exactly a frog.
Cheers.
Artificially induced evolution.
Really get to like you.
I just thought of something. In theory, with this thing being an amphibian, she may also develop the capacity of self-replication.
I said, put the woman down or we will shoot you!
Despite Baywatch Nights not succeeding, the original recipe Baywatch managed to stay afloat until 2001. And while it's not the greatest TV drama ever written,
How dare you!
it really wasn't meant to be. If you go back and watch the show with a fresh set of eyes, you'll mostly find a mindless and absurd show that, while it did feature beach babes running in slow motion, it wasn't as exploitative or borderline softcore porn like many shows that followed. It's campy, unrealistic, and has a turn off your brain and don't think too hard about the plot lines vibe. While I don't think the show is above criticism, I'll save that for other more well-versed people to break down. I do think Baywatch is a show worthy of a revisit. It's most definitely a product of the 90s and captures the pulse of American culture at the time, whether we agree with it or not. And while your stepdad might have tuned in for a glimpse at Pam Anderson, what he came away with was a 100% accurate representation of what it was like being a lifeguard on the beaches of LA.
My beach, flaco. Don't see no sign. 10-16, gangbangers on the beach. Give me back up. We're gonna have to cut those signs down.
And that concludes this brief look into things your stepdad probably liked in the 90s. There'll be more episodes revolving around this premise in the future, and I hope that you tune in. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, now would be a perfect time to do so. And if you've got a favorite Baywatch episode, why don't you let me know in the comments down below. If you're feeling generous and would like to support my work on this channel, head on over to my Patreon page, a link in the description, and drop a few bucks my way. Your support will give you early access to my videos and eventual streaming content, shoutouts, voting power on future episodes, and my sincerest thank you from the bottom of my gack-filled heart. Okay. Until next time, my dudes, I am Mike O'Connor, and you're watching I Miss the 90s. Later.